Why do customers buy what they buy? What goes on in their minds before they make a purchase? These questions are at the heart of consumer behavior. In your exams, you will be asked to explain how consumers make buying decisions and what factors influence them. This is topic 5. By the end of this lesson, you will understand what consumer behavior means, the stages of the buying decision process, the factors that influence consumer behavior, and how to answer exam questions. Take your notes. Let us go. First, what is consumer behavior? Consumer behavior is the study of how individuals, groups, and organizations select, buy, use, and dispose of goods, services, ideas, or experiences to satisfy their needs and wants. It is not just about the act of buying. It includes what happens before and after the purchase. Before buying, consumers search for information. They compare alternatives. After buying, they use the product. They may be satisfied or dissatisfied. They may tell others about their experience. Understanding consumer behavior helps marketers design better products, set appropriate prices, choose effective distribution channels, and create compelling promotions. Now let me explain the stages of the buying decision process. When consumers face a complex or expensive purchase, they go through 5 stages. The first stage is need recognition. The buying process starts when the buyer recognizes a problem or need. The need can be triggered by internal stimuli, such as hunger or thirst, or it can be triggered by external stimuli, such as seeing an advertisement or smelling food. At this stage, the marketer's job is to identify the circumstances that trigger a need. Then the marketer can develop marketing programs that activate those triggers. The second stage is information search. An interested consumer may search for more information. There are 2 levels of search. The milder level is heightened attention. The consumer just becomes more receptive to information about the product. The more active level is active information search. The consumer looks for reading materials, asks friends, visits stores, or searches online. The marketer's job is to provide information that is easy to find and understand. Marketers should also identify the sources that consumers trust most and focus on those sources. The third stage is evaluation of alternatives. The consumer uses the information to evaluate different brands or products. How consumers evaluate alternatives depends on their personal preferences and the specific buying situation. Marketers should study how consumers actually evaluate alternatives. They should know which product features are most important to consumers. They should know how consumers form opinions about different brands. Then they can design their product and marketing message to influence the evaluation. The fourth stage is purchase decision. The consumer decides which brand to buy. But even at this stage, the purchase decision can be interrupted. 2 factors can come between the purchase intention and the purchase decision. The first is the attitudes of others. If a friend says something negative about the brand, the consumer may change their mind. The second is unexpected situational factors. The consumer may lose their job. The store may be out of stock. The price may have gone up. Marketers should try to reduce these barriers. They can offer guarantees. They can build strong distribution. They can create emergency backup plans. The 5th stage is post-purchase behavior. After buying the product, the consumer will either be satisfied or dissatisfied. Satisfaction depends on how the product's performance compares to the consumer's expectations. If the product meets or exceeds expectations, the consumer is satisfied. If it falls short, the consumer is dissatisfied. Dissatisfied consumers may return the product. They may complain. They may tell others about their bad experience. Satisfied consumers may buy again. They may tell others about their good experience. Marketers must monitor post-purchase satisfaction and take action to reduce any negative feelings. Now let me explain the factors that influence consumer behavior. Consumer behavior is affected by 4 main factors: cultural, social, personal, and psychological factors. The first factor is cultural. Culture is the most basic cause of a person's wants and behavior. Culture includes values, perceptions, preferences, and behaviors that a person learns from family and society. For example, in some cultures, people eat with their hands. In others, they use chopsticks. In some cultures, punctuality is very important. In others, it is less important. Marketers must understand the culture they are operating in. Subculture provides more specific identification. Subcultures include nationalities, religions, racial groups, and geographic regions. Social class is also part of culture. Social classes are relatively permanent divisions in a society. People in the same social class have similar values, interests, and behaviors. The second factor is social. Social factors include reference groups, family, and social roles. A reference group is a group that serves as a point of comparison for an individual. Reference groups expose the person to new behaviors and lifestyles. They influence the person's attitudes and self-concept. They create pressures to conform. Aspirational groups are groups that a person wishes to join. Dissociative groups are groups that a person rejects. Family is the most important consumer buying organization in society. Family members strongly influence buying decisions. The roles of husband, wife, and children change over time. Marketers must understand who makes the buying decisions in the family. Social roles and status also matter. A person belongs to many groups. Each group has a role and a status. People choose products that communicate their role and status. The third factor is personal. Personal factors include age, occupation, economic situation, lifestyle, and personality. Age affects what people buy. Children buy toys, teenagers buy clothes and music. Young adults buy furniture and appliances. Older adults buy healthcare and leisure. Occupation affects buying. Blue-collar workers buy work clothes and lunchboxes. White-collar workers buy suits and laptops. Economic situation affects buying. When people have more money, they buy more expensive products. When they have less, they cut back. Lifestyle is a person's pattern of living as expressed in activities, interests, and opinions. Marketers look for lifestyle segments. Personality refers to the unique psychological characteristics that distinguish a person. Brands also have personalities. Consumers often choose brands with personalities that match their own. The fourth factor is psychological. Psychological factors include motivation, perception, learning, and beliefs and attitudes. Motivation is the driving force that causes a person to take action. A need becomes a motive when it is aroused to a sufficient level of intensity. Abraham Maslow proposed a hierarchy of needs. At the bottom are physiological needs like hunger and thirst. Next are safety needs. Next are social needs for belonging and love. Next are esteem needs for status and recognition. At the top is self-actualization, the need for self-fulfillment. People try to satisfy lower needs first. Then they move up. Perception is the process by which people select, organize, and interpret information to form a meaningful picture of the world. People can have different perceptions of the same stimulus. Selective attention means that people pay attention only to information that interests them. Selective distortion means that people interpret information in a way that supports their existing beliefs. Selective retention means that people remember only the good points about a product they like. Marketers must work hard to break through these filters. Learning describes changes in an individual's behavior arising from experience. Learning is produced through the interplay of drives, stimuli, cues, responses, and reinforcement. When a product delivers satisfaction, the consumer learns to associate that product with satisfaction. That is why consistent quality is important. Beliefs and attitudes. A belief is a descriptive thought that a person holds about something. Beliefs may be based on real knowledge, opinion, or faith. An attitude is a person's enduring, favorable or unfavorable evaluation, emotional feeling, and action tendency toward an object or idea. Attitudes are hard to change. Marketers should try to fit their products into existing attitudes rather than trying to change attitudes. Now, let me explain the types of buying decisions. Not all buying decisions are the same. Complex buying behavior occurs when the consumer is highly involved in the purchase and sees significant differences among brands. This happens for expensive, risky, or infrequent products like cars or houses. The consumer goes through all 5 stages carefully. Dissonance-reducing buying behavior occurs when the consumer is highly involved but sees few differences among brands. The purchase is expensive or infrequent, but brands seem similar. The consumer may buy quickly and then experience post-purchase dissonance. Habitual buying behavior occurs when the consumer has low involvement and sees few differences among brands. This happens for low-cost, frequently purchased products like salt or sugar. The consumer does not search for information or evaluate brands carefully. Variety-seeking buying behavior occurs when the consumer has low involvement but sees significant differences among brands. The consumer may switch brands just for variety, not because of dissatisfaction. A common exam question asks you to describe the stages of the consumer buying decision process. Here is a sample answer. The 5 stages are need recognition, information search, evaluation of alternatives, purchase decision, and post-purchase behavior. Need recognition occurs when the consumer identifies a problem or need. Information search is when the consumer seeks information about possible solutions. Evaluation of alternatives is when the consumer compares different brands or products. Purchase decision is when the consumer decides which brand to buy. Post-purchase behavior is when the consumer experiences satisfaction or dissatisfaction after using the product. Another exam question asks you to explain the factors that influence consumer behavior. Here is your answer. Consumer behavior is influenced by cultural factors like culture, subculture, and social class. Social factors like reference groups, family, and roles. Personal factors like age, occupation, economic situation, lifestyle, and personality. Psychological factors like motivation, perception, learning, and beliefs and attitudes. Marketers must understand all these factors because they shape how consumers respond to marketing efforts. Another exam question asks you to distinguish between the different types of buying decisions. Here is your answer. Complex buying behavior occurs when the consumer is highly involved and sees many differences among brands. Dissonance-reducing buying behavior occurs when the consumer is highly involved but sees few differences. Habitual buying behavior occurs when the consumer has low involvement and sees few differences. Variety-seeking buying behavior occurs when the consumer has low involvement but sees many differences. The type of buying decision determines how much information the consumer searches for and how carefully they evaluate alternatives. Here is what you need to take away. Consumer behavior is the study of how people buy and use products. The buying decision process has 5 stages: need recognition, information search, evaluation of alternatives, purchase decision, and post-purchase behavior. Consumer behavior is influenced by cultural, social, personal, and psychological factors. Different types of buying decisions require different marketing approaches. Understanding consumers is the foundation of effective marketing. Practice explaining the stages and factors. When you have them down, move to topic 6.